Thank y'all very much for listening. So here's the question for you today. At what point in time, when sitting in the pews, you knew that it was a match made in heaven? Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about love and marriage, the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. We'll help your spirit transform.
Hey y'all, how are y'all today? So, I asked y'all, at what point in time did y'all know from sitting in the pews that there was going to be something special? So, our love story did not just start at the pew. It really started at a table. Like we were at it. Actually, it started at two tables. And it wasn't the communion table either. It was just a regular old, 6 foot, 8 foot table with some old, metal chairs where the stuff was falling off, whatever. But my, for those of you who know the story, I saw Kafa from across the room, and her smile just lit up the day for me. And then that was the first time when I met her, and hey, I really wanted to be introduced to her. But then I introduced myself, and I said, hey, come and join this choir. And she joined the choir, and we're sitting at this table. And she said to me, I had on some Ronald McDonald shoes.
I didn't say that at that time.
No, I mean, this is some time later.
No, the way you're sharing the story is not.
It's not chronological.
You said we were sitting at the table.
Yeah, we said we were sitting at a table.
And she said to me.
And she said, I'm sitting there. Okay, you want me to paint the whole picture?
No.
We're sitting at a table with her friend, right? And I'm reading her newspaper. This is after she joined the choir. We're sitting at a table with her friend. I'm reading her paper, and they're sitting there busting on my shoes. More or less, Kafa's busting on my shoes. That was not the truth? That's not the truth? Or you remember it differently?
I wasn't.
You wasn't what? You didn't bust on my shoes?
I did.
So, again, what was different from what I said?
You said I called him Ronald McDonald shoes?
I did.
Like I was like, at the table talking to you, and I was like, yeah, it didn't happen that way. But
I'm expressing when I found out that this was going to be something special. I liked it for whatever reason.
Okay.
That's where I was getting at.
Okay.
So, was there any particular time that you realized that we had something special?
I guess there's several times to recognize that something is special there. Can I say in those early days? I mean, times that Maurice is speaking of, like I said, to him, I was a little bit, not shy, but he's a little bit more outgoing, a little more bolder in conversation, and he's more outgoing. He was.
I'm really outgoing. You said it twice.
Really, really outgoing. He was an officer and a church leader, a leader in the choir, a leader in youth groups, not only within the local church, but citywide, multi-statewide, Northeast district of, multiple states. So he had a little bit more, stuff going on, I guess, in that realm. So for myself, he, again, in his role of being a leader, reached out to me and said, hey, can you join this choir? Here's when it meets, all those things. So I come to the choir a few times, whatever. I enjoyed the choir. I liked to sing. I liked the camaraderie, whatever.
I want the whole world to join and sing.
Yes.
In peaceful harmony.
Exactly.
Didn't we just say we could have a song for the whole life?
You
I'm
could.
sorry, go ahead.
You could. So I had invited another person from my church to join the choir as well. She knew him from elementary school or, I don't know, somewhere neighborhood-wise. I didn't know that. But yes, they knew each other. So as he's reading this paper, whatever, looked down, saw his shoes. They were different, not like any other shoes that I've ever seen before. She's a jokester. I'm a jokester. So we just joked. So with all of that being said, again, he's more outspoken. I'm a little bit more quiet. I am a jokester, though. So I did, joke around about him not really reading the paper, faking like he was reading the paper. I did joke around about his shoes and things like that. Flirty type joking, but joking nonetheless. But I wasn't aware of whether or not how old he was, because he dressed older than I thought a person of his age would dress. He presented himself at certain times, more older, I guess more confident, more businesslike than, again, someone who is not even 20 or 21 yet. But again, I didn't know that because he didn't present himself in that way. So again, me being new to this group of 20-year-old plus young adults, I wasn't trying to be like, oh yeah, look at him. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, no, I was just like, hey, I'm here for a ministry. I'm here to sing. And, this person invited me. Doesn't mean like they invited me into their life. I'm just here doing my thing. So I can't say it was like at that particular time early on. I think as we exchanged phone numbers.
What was the time for you to find something
That's what
special?
I'm saying. Okay, I'm getting there.
I got you.
Slow down.
Slow down, high speed.
So after we exchanged phone numbers and things like that, I think that first night we talked on the phone briefly, I felt butterflies. I was like, oh, okay, something's going on here. And then this next time he called, the butterflies were like all over the place. And so I think that's when I knew it was something special. And then I think while we were dating, there were a lot of times there's like, hey, this person is something special. I, second guessed and questioned, like, am I sure? Am I feeling this right? Making sure it's not fleshly feelings, that it's, actual something that's going to last. But that's when I say the phone call is when were my early signs of knowing that there was something special.
But you didn't feel like something was special when you talked about my shoes? Because, I guess maybe, as you're saying, like, you're a jokester or whatever else, but I think I just felt like, and maybe I just felt some type of way. Maybe because I was in my feelings.
Again, it wasn't just me.
But it wasn't a bad feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember what she said. Okay. I have zero remembrance. I remember her being there.
Right.
But I don't remember a word she said. I don't. Okay. And so to me, that's special because I don't, because you totally erased.
I don't know who else was in the room. It
was everybody, because everybody was sitting around. All of us was sitting down.
Who was sitting to your right or your left? I don't recall anybody sitting next to you.
The whole choir. No, because I repelled everybody. So I know I didn't. But at that particular time.
He's like, this nerd, this geek got a newspaper. He's going to sit here.
And it was before we had rehearsal. So we were there a little early. So we all just sat downstairs before we, started rehearsal. And so I'm just sitting there chilling, again, reading the paper. I mean, they thought I was pump faking. I was to a degree,
later on you let me know that you were pump faking.
But
and later on I let you know that, there was a little flirt type thing. I'm paying you attention. I'm looking at your shoes and all that kind of stuff. If I didn't care, or whatever, then I wouldn't even said anything, I guess.
You wouldn't even look my way. You'd be like, you would be sitting at the table, because we were sitting at the table right across from each other, right?
Yes.
So you would have been one of them people that would have turned your chair all the way around, face the opposite direction?
No.
Not that bad?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Not
okay.
that bad.
Oh, okay. I mean, I've seen people that like that bad.
Oh. Well, you know, I can have the blank stare as well, so I can.
I mean, I didn't know that at that particular
Yeah,
time.
I'm just saying now. Again, things have come out later on.
But
You know, it wasn't like you knew that, day or that night that it was a flirty thing. I didn't know that
Right.
day or that night that you were flirting. So
and
it didn't. That
don't
didn't
know
come
if I
out until
was-
later on.
I mean, I guess everybody.
I mean,
kinda
I didn't
first
know like,
differently.
oh, he's faking reading the paper. I didn't say that at that particular time.
And I didn't say I was faking reading either. I was. I mean, and here's what's funny about that though. I'm reading the paper, so the paper is up. It's not totally in my face, but it's up.
Mhm.
It's not laying down on the table.
Mm-mm.
So the fact that y'all were talking to me through the paper
Yeah,
was
it was
something
very,
else.
very movie. Where people have the newspaper up and it just
Right.
a little bit of their eyes is covered,
Right.
and yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but I
And it was
enjoy.
back in the day. So this is old school because we're saying newspapers, and some people are probably like, "What's a newspaper?"
Yeah.
But it was a daily news, correct? So it was a smaller paper.
Yes.
It wasn't the full
No, it wasn't like the Inquirer where
Inquirer.
it's like in 4 sections and you gotta fold and unfold, fold, and
Right.
where it takes up like the between you and the ceiling. Like it wasn't like that. No.
half your body or whatever.
right.
So yeah.
But I had it up. I didn't have it like, I
On the
remember
table.
I remember having it up, like you said, having to almost look over the paper,
Mhm.
to see y'all. But
It was the curtain.
I had
It was
what's the song Vision of Love? Like again,
yes. That's a
musical,
song.
right? Just again, we talk about this whole thing of us being a musical,
Mhm.
right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to, one of the other episodes. So that was for me one of the earlier signs that, we had something special. Because again, as I said to you, or I'm saying to you, I have no idea what the other person was saying. I know they were there.
Mhm.
I know you're over there laughing, but to remember what to even know her tone of voice, like and I remember stuff like that. I don't remember anything she said.
Hmm.
It's like she was there. So, I'm not sure if y'all seen like the movies or TV shows where, the whole background goes gray
blurred,
or
yeah.
something like that, or, it gets washed out and that one person has a spotlight on them, or they're the only ones in color and, things like that. Like that's exactly what Kafka was for me at that particular moment. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that until, I was attracted to her. Like I thought she was really pretty, or whatever. But it wasn't until I had looked over that paper, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I didn't know that. Like I didn't know I was gonna feel that way. And so those were some of the early signs for me that I like, it's something special. I mean, some people you can say, hey, like they're really pretty, whatever else, but there's, others where you be like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have, honestly, I don't have too many wow moments.
Right.
Never really have. I could acknowledge, oh wow, they cute, they got it going on or whatever else. But yeah, I haven't had too many of those moments.
I think another thing that through our relationship, again, it wasn't necessarily early on, as we got to know each other in the earlier times of our relationship, as we talked about, hey, where are you from? So some of our paths crossed a lot as we went through our lineage. You're like, hey, I grew up on this street, and then I went to this school, and then I moved here, and then my aunt lives. You're like, what? Your aunt live where? My aunt lived right next door. Like, oh, really?
Yeah, so so it's almost a situation of like 5 minutes earlier or later, we would have seen each other.
Right.
And there were some moments where I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember having some conversation. I'm like, Kafa, I was there when that happened. But I think part of that as well, as Kafa stated, with her being older, um, she may or may not, paid attention to this little young bull, and because of where I might have been in my life at that time, because I have no idea. Like I said, I can't remember the situation, but was I with my parent? Was I, with my friends, and we being too kiddish, like too immature,
Right.
or whatever, whatever it might have been, so like you said, we cross paths a lot. We have a lot of similarities. We have a lot of family, history where our families kind of come from the general same area
I mean,
of South Carolina. But
I
we
would say-
didn't learn that until later on.
yeah, it got to the point so close at one time. It was like, are we kissing cousins?
Right. So for those of you who don't know,
We were scratching our heads.
here's how close we really are. So we go down to South Carolina. Well, I'm sorry. We go to my great grandfather's side, like his father's side, like their family reunion, right? They're called the Young Ponds. It's the Young Ponds reunion. Shout out to the Young Ponds people. And so is my grandmother's father. So it's his family side. And so, but that reunion was in Atlanta. We go to Atlanta or whatever. And when we come back, I decided, Kav, you know what? Let's go to South Carolina on our way back home to Philly. And let's visit my cousins, because I haven't seen them in a very long time. So we have to come through South Carolina anyway. Let's go and see. Now, here's what's funny. I have one cousin whose family are Wilsons, which is one thing. Her then we find out that some of their family last name, because Kafa's family's last name is Wilson, but there's also some Magnums or Mangums, or however they pronounce it. I don't remember 100%. So when we go to South Carolina, and I'm with my cousin, she's showing us around, and I'm like, hey, I want to show Kafa and the kids, yo, here's some of the things that I used to see and do when we were here, and here are my grandmother. She knows my grandmom and my grandmom's sister, Aunt Maggie. Like, here's where their parents are buried or whatever else. And here's what happened. Because we've gone to Kafa's family reunion stuff. I've heard the last name before. I'm like, but I remember seeing that last name. What do? I turn. So on one side of the road is my family. I turn around. Who do we see? Right on the other side, directly across, but the Magnums. And so I'm like, Kafa, I told you I remember seeing that name. So come to find out, because everyone was in that area, right? That it's like we're like so close that our ancestors are literally right next to each other in this cemetery. And so it's been interesting to see how close we are as far as relatives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, funny enough, once we start going down the family tree or whatever else, like, we haven't really seen because both of us look into the ancestry stuff
And genealogy.
Genealogy stuff. So we haven't necessarily seen too many last names cross. I mean, because there's some people that we gotta kind of figure out, but unfortunately they're gone. So we don't know 100% or not.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how close we really are. So as Kafa said, like, are we really like cousins? Is that why we fight so often? Like, or fight the way we do, whatever. And we don't, not really. But those are some of the other signs that you say, hey, maybe we really are special. Like, we kind of understand from a historical genealogy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have it within our genes of where we come from. You know, so I think, yeah, you're right. I think those are some of the other signs that we're good.
Yeah, that makes us, our story different and special and unique from others. Certainly, hey, where we met and how things started. But I want the audience to understand that we didn't learn a lot of these things until later on.
Right.
So with anybody, you're not going to know all of this up front as you're dating. You're not going to know all this up front as soon as you get married. There's no open the book and let me tell you all this stuff. It does unfold through time. But that's what makes marriage great, because you get to unfold all these things every day and every week, every month, every year. If there's something new, the same person, but you get to unravel and learn more about that person. So I think that's one of the things that I would add to this conversation of what makes Maurice and I special is just how much our history of our own selves and what we have experienced, as well as he's saying, our ancestry has been interwoven amongst each other, that puts us where we are now. And, just to add to the story, like, again, there's just so many things as we go back and we talk about where, we may have gone to school or, again, this whole story that came up about his aunt living on this street, because he was telling me like where his doctor was. I was like, oh, I know exactly where that is. I used to live around the corner. He was like, but I used to live right here, so it's just like all these things are just so, like he said, so close, never really around the same time. Like we crossed paths actually, but it's just like, okay, well, he grew up on Stoughton Avenue and I have an aunt that lives literally around the corner from there. Again, she still lives there, but,
and that's what I mean by that whole 5 minutes before or after.
Right. I would never be hanging out on Stoughton Avenue. I would have been on her street,
right.
The few times that I would come over, but, that was just that close, for where he went to church and, things like that. All those years he went there, I had family and things in, not too far in the neighborhood. Like there's just so many different things. I think when my father passed, we found some invitations to some parties that he had at least been invited to. And Maurice looked at it, he's like, that's the street I used to live on.
Right.
My mom, family used to live on that street. So it's like, well, wait a minute. Did they know each other? Did they not know each other? Hey, there's just like so many things that are so close as large or as small as Philadelphia is. We have crossed paths like, so much or not at all. Because again, Maurice grew up in this church and I kind of was going for some time. My family was there. But we never crossed paths up until, we were both in our 20s. So,
and the reality is the church she grew up in, like I have one.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Well, before we even get into the real family part of that, but I won awards. Like I attended things and won awards in that church, Emmanuel AME Church. For those of you who are AME and in the Philadelphia area and know about Emmanuel AME Church, and when we had the Junior Olympics and things like that, my awards that I won for the Junior Olympics, knowing my Bible, knowing the church, all that type of stuff, I won in that church. And it's funny because, as she stated, once we get into family stuff and realizing that she pretty much grew up with my family, whether they're literally my aunts and cousins, or they're my cousins by marriage,
right?
Because everybody was there, and so
again, these are things that like you don't open the book and know that
right
when you're dating, especially when you're younger.
Right.
A lot of these things we didn't find out till we were older and we went to a funeral, or as Marie said, you go to a family gathering of some type. And you're like, oh, why are you here?
Right. Oh, it was funny because the church members, and here's the funny part. The funny part is the one church member, she, took Kafa in. When I say took Kafa in, like, just like, hey,
She was like an adoptive grandmother,
right?
Adoptive mom, adoptive grandmom.
But she did that with all the kids. But she really took to Kafa. But I think part of that is age and all that stuff as well. And Kafa's willingness to help and assist, and Kafa was doing Bible study. So she was helping out Miss Diane or whatever. And then, Miss Diane watched our kids while we were going to work, things like that. So she had our kids every day for years. My grandmother passes, and Miss Diane, along with some of the other church people, come in, and they sit like kind of right behind us, and they're like, at the funeral, and they're like, why are you here? And I had to say, that is my grandmother. And they're like, what?
She's one of our old church members, and she was married to my cousin's brother or something like that, so. She
sang at my wedding. She did this. And so, and the niece has a child by my uncle and this and that. So what's funny as Kafa is stating is that what makes us special, once again, we're like 5 minutes apart, one way or the other, from seeing each other, from being around each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting that, like, for us, I always felt like we were destined to be together,
right, one
way or another. Like, it just happened that way.
Yeah.
So that's what makes, like you said, Kyle, like, that's what makes us special.
Mm-hmm.
So granted, every story is not going to be like that, be like this. It's not going to be that close, because that's close, right?
Right.
But it helps us to understand one another. It helps us to understand where the other person is coming from, understanding their culture, all those type of things. So, what about yourselves that's out there? What have you found and find that some things are special? So when I won the award, like, all right, her being an Emmanuel, like, no, I already knew that part. Like, all right, this is cool. I know Emmanuel, yada, yada, yada. But I didn't know my family history in the church.
Mm-hmm.
At all. I didn't know that almost 10 years after we had gotten married, and we had already been together for 13 years.
Right.
So listen, we had baby showers and, again, and what's funny is that Miss Diane she says to me, Maurice, I never really paid attention to your last name.
Right. You just call you by your first name. You're Maurice. So not noting like, hey, I've heard that last name before. And yeah. So again, it was for her, I'm sure that was 20, 30, 50 years separated from, being with your grandmother or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Because, she's talking, hey, when they were younger, type thing.
Right.
So, hey, I don't remember everybody just in passing and would even think that. So, yeah.
So, these are some of the things that made us special. Again, some of the stuff that we learned, later on,
Mm-hmm.
But what made things special early on was, like I said, for myself, was she just sparkled for me, and she still does, most definitely. I try to tell her as often as I can, that I don't take what we have lightly. I don't take it for granted. And I hope that each and every one of you are kind of in the same boat where you don't, you're not doing that as well. I'm sorry, y'all. Like, I'm waiting for Kafa to say something, but she's over here fighting imaginary stuff.
Something flew in my face, and so I had to.
You had to fight it?
Yeah.
You had to. Listen, y'all, like, she fought it. She had to take off her glasses, so evidently it got serious.
Mm-hmm.
But we thank y'all very much for listening.
And thank you for being a special part of our lives.
Most definitely. And we'll talk to y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. We hope today's discussion left you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and ready to take on life's journey with purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. You can catch up on past episodes, send us your thoughts, or learn more about us on social media. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you next time.